Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Friday, October 7th, and this is virtual lunch number 656. Our guest today is Daniel Gold, the Managing Director of eDiscovery Managed Services at BDO USA, and this is part of our series on custom development for legal with Inserio. Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Good. How you doing? All right. How's everyone else doing?
Tell us about your background and your role at BDO.
Lawyer by trade. I started practicing about 20 years ago. And what happened is that along the way while I was practicing, this is like, 2002, 2003, whatever it is, I actually found that I loved playing with technology more than I like practicing law every day, which might come as, not a shock to some of you on this on this call here. And as a result of that, I got into the legal software and services and technology sales. I did that for a while, and then I wanted to become much more technical. So I entered the realm of being a principal solutions consultant for a couple of legal tech companies. I decided to get out of eDiscovery completely and went into the IT world, and I was the VP of an IT managed services provider and entered the world of everything Microsoft, Dennis. So like I really got immersed heavily in that world. And then I got sucked back into eDiscovery when a friend of mine, as we all know in the eDiscovery business, this is a very, very close-knit group. And there's a good life message, which is always treat people with respect. So you never know when you're going to work with or work for the other person on the other side of the conference room table. Then I got a phone call one day in 2019 from a friend who was a sales rep colleague of mine. And he said, hey, he says, I've already recommended you for the role of managing director for the eDiscovery Managed Services practice that BDO USA wants to build. I hope you don't mind. And are you interested? I'm like, I think you did that backwards. But yeah, so I got here right before the world shut down. March 2nd, 2020 was my first day. And so walked in the door with the business plan and had to quickly pivot. When I walked in the door and I had this business plan, the goal was start a practice that never existed at BDO. And so that was really great, with the exception of I wasn't planning on a world pandemic and everyone shutting down. And the reality is that honestly, like what I had in my business plan, what my objectives were, which were what do I want to accomplish and what were my key results? How am I going to get those things done? Objectives and key results are really what drove me to be successful in the practice, knowing that the world came to a screeching halt and I had to pivot and I had to shift. And the reality is that you can pivot and you can shift, so long as you are grounded with these objectives and key results. I know what I want to do. I know how do I want to accomplish this, and being agile is much more attainable if you've got those OKRs in place. And it really is about, you've got to have that determination. You've got to have that perseverance. And you know that, as Simon Sinek called it, it's the infinite game. It's not the finite game. And I think that I've been playing this infinite game where I know that no matter what, I'm going to have to go like this and navigate the world as I go through it. And I'm blessed to have an amazing team around me and who I feel like are vastly smarter than I am. So, which is great because they help me and execute these crazy ideas that I've got. So I was asked to create a business plan before I walked in the door, right? And create this business plan. What does it look like? So the way I map out my business plan was, obviously for everyone on this call has created a business plan before. It's, pretty obvious. Like here's the problem we're trying to solve for, et cetera, right? Okay, let's get that out of the way. Those are table stakes, right? It's what's the strategy in which you're going to lay it out? And that starts with me saying, okay, if the goal is to get to X, then what I need to be able to do is create an objective. What am I going to do? So those objectives might be, developing partner relationships, right? That would be with Inserio, that would be with Relativity, that would be with Microsoft, right? Another one might be, if I want to get from 0 to X, then I need to go ahead and say, then my next objective is operational efficiency. What are my key results I'm going to get there? So everything has to be quantifiable and qualitative. And so I need to be able to showcase to executive leadership teams that, and this is exactly what I did at a whiteboard in St. Louis, actually, in our BDO offices. I just mapped out, I said, okay, here's the goal in the middle. And if you think of a mind map, it was here's objective, here are the key results. Here's objective, here's the key result. And here's all the weekly initiatives I'm going to have. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to reset every single 12 weeks, every single quarter. I'm going to reset with new objectives, new key results, and just drive to execute. And by the way, one of the missing ingredients I had was somebody to help me sell. So I have the best ideas in the world, and Juan and team could help me execute on one of the biggest strategies I had, right? But it doesn't really matter if I don't have a great marketing team and I have a great sales team. When I think it was like day 3, by the way, I was on a phone call with the marketing professional that was assigned to me, and she says to me, Daniel, okay, so with world events happening, they're changing minute by minute. I've got 2 priorities this fiscal year: COVID and you, right? And I said, well, as long as you don't put the 2 of those together and you associate me with the world pandemic, we're in good shape. But that was what I had to do was basically say to her, like, one of my key objectives is to socialize and evangelize to the world what we're doing with managed services. How is it different? Why is it different? What is so unique about what we're doing here? I had to bring in sales, and that was a big challenge for me because I had to find the right salesperson. I didn't want just any salesperson. I wanted somebody that was like a sales engineer, solutions architect, somebody who had technical chops, who could advise and consult, because BDO is an advisory firm, right? So it was like finding a unicorn. Empathy. I've been doing this too long to not recognize the fact that one of the biggest problems that I see in the legal services provider space is that everybody charges for everything very differently, and there's no transparency around it. In other words, everyone can say, hey, we're going to stage data, we're going to process data, we're going to produce the data, whatever, but everybody calls it something different. Everybody charges something different. And it's like, it's gotten to a point where nobody actually knows, it's like, okay, hey, we have a new project, go out and find the cheapest per gig. Well, is that really their answer? Is that really solving for any problems? And so what happens is that you've got, 100 different vendors who all charge different things. And I feel badly for the consumer, the customer, the end client that says, it's now my full-time job to figure you guys out, right? And so what led me to wanting to create something out of nothing was the fact that I was empathetic to the plight of all of my clients over the years who have said, there's no transparency around the data, there's no transparency in the contract, there's no transparency around being able to make better business decisions around data, right? And I have no idea whether or not my data is really that secure or not secure. So funny enough, there's a lot of unofficial mentors in my life. And I read something recently that said that nobody is successful in life by themselves, right? Nobody is successful in their lives by themselves, right? And anyone who says that they did it on their own, they're lying, right? There's no way. And so, people like, for instance, like Juan, like he's been an influence in my life. And no, for better or for worse, I suppose, Juan. And and he's not on this call, but I'll mention, but like, Chris Haley over at Troutman, right? I've known Chris since my early days when I was carrying a sales bag at LexisNexis, more years ago than I want to admit on this phone call. Okay. Chris, and I've told this to him, right? As recent as yesterday, as a matter of fact, he's been a driving influence in my life. And I have succeeded more in my life through my failures, right? Which I have had many, than I have had successes. But you learn from those and you become empathetic, right? You have to. The whole definition of empathy is that you have the capacity to feel what other people feel, right? And so if you can feel the pain that your clients have when it comes to e-discovery and legal services and software and providers, et cetera, well, then you are a marketably much better place than you were before, because then you're not creating things to like, oh, I need to be able to, get to $5 million this year in sales goals. Well, what would that mean, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're creating something to generate revenue, you're creating it for the wrong reason. If people believe in what you believe in, then they are going to buy from you, right? So if you lead with empathy, you lead with understanding, you lead with this idea that these problems I'm going to solve for are not just something to be able to drive a sales funnel, but rather to solve actual problems. And you can leverage people who understand marketing, right? Then you can push out and socialize and evangelize a message to say, look, I'm creating something. This is the problem that we're solving for. I just so happen to call it X. But that's what I think it means to be able to lead from a position of empathy. You can't create and develop something with the simple goal of, I'm going to do this because it's going to make me money. it's the wrong reason to start, it's going to fail.
Love it.
Daniel Gold, everybody. Great conversation. Thanks to you. Thanks to our friends at Ontario for supporting this series on custom development for legal. I hope everyone has a great weekend.